Pamela Anderson and Liam Neeson, inside their quiet, confusing, and surprisingly wholesome, Lost Week, romance. There are Hollywood romances that explode across magazine covers overnight, the kind that burn fast, bright, and publicly. Then there are the quieter stories, the ones that slip between the cracks, whispered by insiders and only later confirmed by the people involved. Pamela Anderson's revelation that she enjoyed what she calls an intimate week with her Naked Gun co-star Liam Neeson falls into this second category, a discreet, almost old-fashioned Hollywood connection that unfolded far from paparazzi flashes, in an upstate New York home surrounded by trees, gardens, assistants, and unexpected family drop-ins. It wasn't a torrid fling, nor was it a blockbuster, red carpet romance. If anything, Anderson's description paints a picture of two seasoned stars who stumbled into something warm, charming, and fleeting, the sort of relationship that feels like a scene from a Nancy Meyers movie, equal parts cozy and bittersweet, and destined to exist only within a brief, private window of time. Now, for the first time, Anderson is confirming the rumors that have swirled since last year, rumors that ignited after Neeson publicly gushed that he was madly in love with her during an interview. What actually happened between them was simple, sincere, and perhaps sweeter than anyone expected. Below is the full story, rewritten and expanded into an approximately 3,000-word feature exploring their connection, the media confusion that followed, the mixed messages from insiders, and how the two stars ultimately navigated a short romance that left them bonded as long-term friends. A Hollywood connection that began on set. Pamela Anderson, now 58, has long been one of pop culture's most enduring icons, the kind of star who carries decades of headlines trailing behind her like a comet tail. Liam Neeson, 73, occupies a different sphere, respected, rugged, Irish, and unexpectedly charming, with a career that spans brooding dramas and international action franchises. Their pairing, on paper, never seemed predictable. But the Naked Gun reboot changed that. The two were cast side by side in the comedy, and almost immediately, fans noticed their banter during interviews. Press junket clips circulated across social media, Anderson laughing at Neeson's deadpan humor, Neeson smiling warmly at her answers, the two slipping into an easy rapport. It wasn't scripted chemistry, it was human chemistry. Anderson insists nothing romantic happened during filming. She makes that point clearly, almost protectively. If you must know, Liam and I were romantically involved for a short while but only after we finished filming. Their connection began later, in the calm space after production wrapped, a time when actors often retreat, relax, and reset. For Anderson and Neeson, that reset happened together. The invitation, a week in upstate New York. According to Anderson, Neeson reached out with an invitation to spend some time at his place in upstate New York. It wasn't a flashy Hollywood proposal, no jets, no exotic travel, no red carpet tie-ins. Just a quiet home, an open schedule, and an actor who genuinely enjoyed her company. Anderson accepted, but what she walked into wasn't a lover's retreat. It was something more innocent. In fact, one of the most surprising details Anderson reveals is just how wholesome the entire week was. She had her own bedroom. Their assistants were present. Family members came and went. This wasn't a secret rendezvous in the way tabloids might imagine it. It was more like two people testing out companionship in a natural, unforced environment, the kind of setting where you learn whether someone fits into your life, not just your fantasy. Anderson referred to it, affectionately, as their intimate week, though she clarified the intimacy was emotional and relational, not sexual. Dinner, roses, and the future Mrs. Neeson moment. One of the most charming anecdotes from Anderson's recounting involves a dinner date at a tiny French restaurant. It was the opposite of Hollywood glamour, cozy, tucked away, elegant in its simplicity. And it was here that Neeson, seemingly caught up in the moment, introduced her playfully, or perhaps not so playfully, as the future Mrs. Neeson. The comment, delivered in front of strangers, landed somewhere between flirtation and earnest affection. Anderson doesn't describe embarrassment or discomfort, only amusement and a warm memory. She paints the moment as something cinematic, the kind of gesture that sticks with you long after the romance has cooled. Later, at Neeson's home, another snapshot added texture to their connection. Anderson describes wandering into his garden and discovering a rosebush overgrown with mint. She began tending to it, unprompted, slipping into a quiet domestic moment that felt symbolic in hindsight, nurturing something fragile, a little tangled, and fleeting. I was happy to help, and he appreciated it. It reads like a metaphor for the entire relationship, simple, temporary, oddly sweet. The lost week, and its quick ending. Anderson refers to their time together as a lost week. Not lost as in regrettable, lost as in removed from time, tucked away in a bubble that couldn't last. After 7 days of shared dinners, morning coffee, gardening, conversations, and companionship, reality stepped back in. Both actors had upcoming projects. Both had obligations waiting. And so, after our lost week, we went our separate ways to work on other films. There was no dramatic fallout, no heartbreak, no betrayal. Their romance didn't implode, it simply paused. Reconnection during the Naked Gun press tour. Months later, Anderson and Neeson reunited during the promotional run for the Naked Gun. These junkets, usually exhausting and repetitive for actors, became a surprising extension of their earlier time together. Anderson described their renewed connection as a little bit like a Nancy Meyers film. Warm lighting, cozy banter, two people with an already established intimacy rediscovering their rhythm in hotel hallways, green rooms, and press couches. Viewers noticed, interview clips went viral as fans speculated endlessly about whether they were secretly dating. They laughed privately at those assumptions. People thought it was a publicity stunt, Anderson said. But we had real feelings. Confusion in the press. Are they together or aren't they? This is where the story gets messy. Not between Anderson and Neeson, but among the people around them. In interviews, Neeson praised Anderson extensively. He described her as easygoing, ego-free, funny, and delightful. Then he said the line that sent the internet into a frenzy. "I'm madly in love with her." It's rare for A-list actors to speak so candidly about co-stars in the present tense. Fans immediately assumed the two were dating, and for a moment, so did the press. Soon after, People magazine confirmed through sources that they had a budding romance. Insiders told outlets their connection was sincere. Friends of both stars, according to sources, were rooting for them. Then came the contradictory reports. By late summer, sources suddenly insisted that while there was instant chemistry, the relationship never developed into an intimate relationship. Another insider insisted they were just friends. The public didn't know who to believe. But the conflicting statements didn't bother Anderson. To her, the truth was simple. They had a romance, brief, genuine, non-sexual, affectionate, and they chose friendship in the end. Pamela's version of the truth, clear, calm, and straightforward. When speaking to People, Anderson didn't attempt to label what they had. She didn't exaggerate it into something mythic or downplay it into insignificance. Her tone was refreshingly grounded. She adored Neeson, she admitted. She still does, but she stressed that in full honesty, they make better friends than partners. And perhaps most importantly, she emphasized that Neeson has remained supportive of her new direction in life and career. He has told her he is proud of her evolution, a sentiment Anderson values deeply. "I'm sure we will always be in each other's lives," she said. Why their connection resonates with fans. The idea of Pamela Anderson and Liam Neeson, two public figures from entirely different Hollywood worlds, discovering a quiet romantic spark feels almost mythic. It doesn't follow typical celebrity romance formulas. No age gap controversy, no tabloid scandal, no whirlwind engagement, no combined red carpet debut. Instead, it's a story about two mature adults with decades of life experience discovering a surprising, affectionate bond almost by accident. It feels nostalgic, like a glimpse into a version of Hollywood where romance wasn't always strategic, public, or performative. Anderson and Neeson didn't orchestrate this connection for publicity. If anything, they seemed to shield it. They let it unfold privately, in a house with too many people in it to foster anything scandalous. Even the goodnight kisses, if they happened, were never discussed. Anderson didn't sensationalize the week, nor did she diminish it. She simply described it: a lost week, a rosebush, a tiny French restaurant, a man introducing her as the future Mrs. Neeson, and then life moving on. It's the kind of narrative that belongs in a screenplay, not a gossip column. Parallel timelines, their lives before and after. To understand why fans were rooting for this pairing, it helps to look at both stars' relationship histories. Liam Neeson's past, love and loss. Neeson was married to actress Natasha Richardson from 1994 until her tragic death in 2009 after a skiing accident. The couple had 2 sons, Michelle and Daniel, whom Neeson has raised largely out of the public eye. Those who know him say Richardson's loss marked him profoundly, not publicly, but privately, in the way he moved through the world after her passing. In the years since, Neeson has dated occasionally but has kept his romantic life quiet and intentionally guarded. That's why his openness about Anderson, calling himself madly in love, shocked longtime fans and grabbed national headlines. Pamela Anderson's past, high-voltage romances. Pamela's romantic history is the opposite, messy, public, and often painful. Her most famous relationship was with Motley Crue drummer Tommy Lee, to whom she was married from 1994 to 1998. Their relationship led to one of the earliest and most devastating celebrity privacy violations in history. She later married, and sometimes remarried, other partners. Kid Rock, Rick Salomon, Bret Michaels, Scott Baio. Anderson has never regretted loving boldly, but she has admitted she's now in a different chapter of her life, one grounded in peace, healing, and self-redefinition. Perhaps that's why Neeson felt like a breath of fresh air. He wasn't part of Hollywood chaos. He wasn't chasing headlines. He wasn't tangled in her past. Their connection was clean. Where they stand today, a lasting friendship. Despite both of their inner circles gently encouraging them to explore a real relationship, it ultimately didn't evolve beyond their initial week and their press tour reconnection. But the bond remains. Sources emphasized that their friendship is genuine. They will always have a connection. They sincerely enjoy each other's company. They support one another personally and professionally. Neither star seems heartbroken or regretful. Instead, the relationship feels like a fond memory, a chapter that came and went at the right time. A story without a Hollywood ending, but with something better. Pamela Anderson's confirmation of her rollercoaster romance with Liam Neeson isn't shocking because of scandal. It's shocking because it's wholesome. Because it's real. Because it's the kind of romantic interlude most people experience at least once in their lives, fleeting, sweet, meaningful, but not destined for forever. At nearly 3,000 words of insight, anecdotes, and behind-the-scenes clarity, the simplest takeaway remains the same. 2 people liked each other. They spent a week together. They laughed. They bonded. They tried. And then they chose friendship. In Hollywood, that might be the most grounded love story of all.